Reddit. Have you ever done something really smart to prevent escape from a crime or dangerous situation? When I was in college, I was underage and in a bar when it was raided by the police. While the police were going through checking everyone's ID, I walked away from the police towards the back of the bar. That's when I saw that the bar staff had started to clean up the place. I saw one of the bartenders tie up a bag of garbage and set it on top of the bar to be picked up by the barback. I walked over, picked up the bag, threw it over my shoulder, calmly walked out the side door past a police officer and dumped the bag in a trash container. The officer just assumed I worked there and never noticed that I walked on down the street after throwing out the garbage. When I was a freshman in college, I was at a house party where the majority of the guests were underage. I was chatting it up with a girl who was older. She was 20. I was 19. When we started to see people rushing by us to get to the back door. As it turns out, the cops were busting the party and handing out drinking tickets. I grabbed her arm and threw us into the coat closet. Then I sat up against it so that no one else could enter. It seemed like it was locked with a bolt from the outside. I sat there and made out with this girl while the cops searched the building. But when they came to the door, we hid under some coats that were there, managed to escape without a hitch, and asked if we could go back to her place. When she said that she had roommates and insisted we go back to mine, I had to come clean that I was a freshman living in the dorms. Did not get lucky that night. I was in a club and saw a person put a pill into a girl's drink while she was in the bathroom. I didn't know what to do, so I grabbed the glass and drank it. I told my friend I just roofied myself and woke up in my bed 20 hours later. LOL. Way to crack the case, Sherlock. While on a family vacation, my brother and I decided to attend a college football game. On our way to the game, the traffic was miserably backed up, and we decided to illegally park at a shopping center, despite signs all over that non-customers would be fined $350. The game was a bit of a blowout and we decided to head back early and beat the rush. I was also paranoid that we'd been towed. Once we got back to the parking lot, it was worse than we had thought. Tow trucks were all over the place, with 3 or 4 lined up in the lot, each taking turns towing obvious violations. The lot was quite empty since it was late at night, and fans would come back to their cars, get questioned by the cops, then towed if they were deemed to not be customers. Thankfully, the car we drove was a rental from a nearby county, so we blended in okay. A lot of cars were from Nebraska and had team paraphernalia all over. I also recognized that simply making a straight walk to our car would get us busted and towed. That's when I made this now infamously genius suggestion. We would walk the long way around the parking lot, sneak onto the shopping mall sidewalk and enter into the Office Max we had parked in front of. From there, we would mingle for a few minutes, pick up some batteries and drinks, and then walk out with our Office Max bags in visible view. I don't honestly remember the final 20 feet to our rental car, but I imagine it's the feeling that Andy Dufresne had when he emerged from the sewage pipe in The Shawshank Redemption. Did this a lot with a parking lot at a mall in a downtown area. They were charging like $20 for game parking, but it was only like $2 an hour. So, we would just tell the security guard we were buying fudge every time, and after the game we usually actually did buy fudge. So, it wasn't a total lie. My dad was speeding on his motorcycle on some empty country roads around dusk. He noticed a cop with his lights on, so he sped away, took a left, got out of the cop's line of sight, killed the engine and walked his bike into a cornfield. A cop sped right past him. He doesn't ride anymore, but he still likes to tell this story. My grandpa did something similar, except he just drove his motorcycle right into the cornfield and kept going. People around town still refer to him as Crazy George. There was a dude sitting all alone at a bridge at night. I was high out of my mind and just started talking to him, and we smoked some weed. Turns out he was contemplating suicide, but I distracted him. That was like 4 years ago. I'm invited to his wedding next month. So yeah, Jaime stopped a suicide with an offer of weed. Once I was speeding down the road, not realizing how fast I was going, and passed a parked police car before I noticed him. The police car jumps out onto the highway. I looked at my speedometer and crap. Quickly, as the police car caught up to me, I switched from the passing lane to the travel lane in front of a massive pickup. I maneuvered one more lane to the right and matched the police car's speed relative to the pickup but backwards, perfectly hiding my small car behind the pickup. I got off a random exit with a pickup still hiding me from the police car. By the time the police officer figured out what happened, I was long gone. From an outside perspective, it just looked like I innocently switched lanes and slowed down to get off the highway, so I would have been fine even if the officer did manage to follow. TLDR. Escaped a ticket with a perfectly safe and innocent looking maneuver. Han Solo'd that copper. I was in a bathroom at a bar once when this guy pulled a knife on someone else. I was really drunk, taking a pee at the urinal, and turned to see what was happening and pee right at the guy with the knife. Like attack pee. I didn't do it on purpose, but he dropped the knife and ran out, so I was a hero in the eyes of my fellow drunk pissers. He brought a knife to a pee fight. Back in my retail days, we would have a lot of repeat criminals at my store. Our managers usually knew who they were, but they didn't want to do anything unless they had enough evidence to actually make it worth the police's while. Well, one guy came in who frequently stole things and then returned them for store credit. The security guy recognized him and told my supervisor. She came over and pointed him out and told me to distract him while she called the police from the upstairs phone. Being all alone and on the spot, I started out very friendly and cooperating with his return. I tried to stretch it out as much as possible, making conversation and pressing buttons slowly, but that only ate up a few minutes. So, finally, I faked a computer problem. I told the guy that our store credit network was down and that I would have to call our service center to get him his credit. Considering the company I worked for, stuff like this actually happened enough for it to be believable. When he started looking impatient, I apologized profusely and asked him if he'd like a free snack while he was waiting. I saw his eyes light up at the offer of free, so I called over to the food court and told them to give him whatever he wanted. The guy happily munched on coffee and a pretzel until the police finally showed up. Haha, I like this one because he had no idea, just munching away happily. The day after a party at my apartment, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and recognized the guy from the night before. He was really fricked up both the night before and as he was in my doorway. He accused me of stealing his phone and wallet. When I said I didn't have it, he pulled out a gun and said that if I didn't have it he was going to kill me. That's when I told him I remembered a friend saying they found a phone and wallet. I said I would call them and told the guy to come back in an hour and I would have his phone and wallet for him. He was so fricked up on some type of drug that he bought it and said when he came back that if it wasn't there he would be popping caps in my butt. As soon as he left, I called the cops and they found him at his parents' house sleeping with the gun in his pants still. TLDR. Guy on drugs pulled gun on me looking for his phone and wallet. Told him to come back later. He left. I called cops. He went to jail. This isn't really smart, but a guy tried to mug me, so I punched him in the face and ran into the street. He was really tall, pretty scary looking, and I was a short and fat high school sophomore. I was walking home from school when he walked up and said, "Gimme your phone." I wasn't actually holding a phone. It was a broken tape recorder I was fixing for a friend. I immediately stuffed it in my pocket and told him no. He said, "Man, don't make a scene. Gimme that or I'm gonna kick your butt." He had really odd super light colored eyes, and I remember how intense he looked. He started puffing up, doing the "gonna kick your butt" dance, and he reached for his down jacket to take it off. Right when his hands were occupied with the coat, I punched him in the face as hard as I could. Go childhood karate, and ran into a busy street, ducked around cars, ran all the way home. Probably not worth it for a broken tape recorder, like, with a tiny cassette tape, but I'm stubborn. You clearly didn't watch enough anime. You don't hit someone when they are preparing for battle. That's low, dude. A few years ago, my friends and I had a water balloon fight on our street. Someone threw a balloon over the house and it hit a guy that was on the other side. A few minutes later, a guy in a suit that had water all over it came up to us and was furious. He comes up yelling and says stuff like, "Are you the M who threw this goddamn water balloon that hit my suit? I have a meeting in an hour, blah blah blah." As he's yelling, I'm thinking how we are going to get out of this. Then I get an idea. I butt in and say, "They got you too." The guy bought it and stopped and said something like, "Yeah, you wanna find those M blah blah blah, etc." We all say yeah and say that we're going to get in our cars and drive around looking for them. Now the guy's happy and he's like yeah, I'll do the same. So we all got in our cars and drove off. Not really a dangerous situation, but I felt like a genius. The best part about this story is that you were still having water balloon fights when you were old enough to drive. TLDR. Managed to talk my way out of getting mugged in the 2003 blackout. Like many eyes, I was stranded because, at the time, I lived in Nassau County and naturally, the transportation options to get home didn't really exist. I decided to walk from my office to a friend's place in Brooklyn and made the mistake of going over the Williamsburg Bridge. As I'm trundling my way through the blistering heat, I take a breather at the corner of Lee Ave and Flushing. As I'm collecting myself, a shady as frick guy approaches me and asks if I can spare any money. As he's walking up, I catch, out of my peripheral vision, his very large, at least 6'5", well-muscled friend silently walking up behind me. Realizing I've got about 10 seconds before this goes south, I put on my heaviest Irish accent and explain that I forgot my wallet in the haste to leave the office and didn't feel like walking back up 20 stories to get it blah blah, and hey, do you know where I could get a free drink blah blah. Dejected, they both walk away. Bonus. A livery cab came by less than a minute later and I was able to convince him to take me the rest of the way because I had $200 in cash on me since I had coincidentally gone to the ATM in the morning before the blackout hit. Guys definitely saw me and were giving me the furious dead eye. Felt good. Now I want to hear the accent. I am not quite sure I did anything clever, but I did what I could. I used to deliver pizzas for Papa John's. I had to transfer to a really crappy area due to other reasons I won't get into. But this was like zombies walking down the streets kind of ghetto and dudes throwing up signs on corners. So I had a delivery to this apartment. Buzz 201. Old lady pops her head out and is like, nope, didn't order. Well crap. Alright, I decide to call. This girl says yeah, it'll be right down. 3 black dudes walk from around the back and are like, yeah, you just called the girl, she said she'd be right down. I was like, UHH. Okay. I make my way to the car and try to nonchalantly put the pizzas away and leave. But they meet me at the driver door and have money in hand, so I am like, alright, guess this is alright. I take out the 3 pizzas and hold them out with my left hand, tell them it's like $40. All the while my right hand is on my switchblade on my belt. They don't take the pizzas and there's an awkward silence. Next thing you know, the dude on the left tries snatching the pizzas, but out of instinct I grab onto them with both hands. The blade now off my belt and in my hand still. One of the dudes clocks me in the back of the head with something heavy. Ouch. Slightly fuzzy, I let go of the pizzas and flip the blade and slash as hard as I can. I made contact with someone somewhere, but then my instincts kick in and I run faster than ever and pull out my phone and dial 911. One of them is yelling, give me your money or I'll pop you. I look back and they're giving chase, pointing a pistol at me. Frick. The operator answers and I just say the address and I am being robbed at gunpoint like 3 times. I dive over a snowbank that's slightly taller than me. I look back over and they were gone. Cops come, I give my statement. A week later the detective said they think they found the dudes because they did the same thing at another apartment. One of the dudes had a fresh gash wound on his arm, combined with the fact the girl gave her real number to set up the robbery and it all fell back on her, causing her to give up names. They got 15 years in jail. They were all barely 18. TL. Doctor. Got robbed delivering pizzas. Knife wound linked them to the crime. Whoa. Setting up and mugging pizza delivery guys is about as low as you can go. When I was a teenager I walked across the border, Canada to US, with no passport and without going through customs. The town on the other side of the border was really small and only had a Subway restaurant. Years later, I decided to walk across again, this time legitimately. I told CBP that I had never been across before. When they asked me what I was planning to do in the US, I said, I dunno, eat some Subway. The CBP guy got really suspicious and asked me how I knew that there was a Subway there. I freaked out. I was sure that they caught me on my lie. Then, in a split second, I decided to pretend to have misheard the question, and I just said, well, I guess I can go to McDonald's instead. He let me through. Years ago, I was working as a stagehand in San Francisco. I had a late gig tearing out a show from one of the theaters on the edge of the Tenderloin near Market Street. We all knew we'd be working well past midnight. Plus, it was Super Bowl Sunday and everyone knew the Niners were going to win, so instead of parking my car on the street in the Tenderloin, where it likely would get trashed by drunken football fans, I decided to pay for a secure garage 5-6 blocks away. Fast forward to 2:30 a.m. I'm leaving the venue and immediately realize what time it is, where I am, and through what sort of hardcore hood I must walk through to get to my car. Oh, and I have about $1,500 worth of hand and power tools with me. Nice. Not seeing Taxi 1, I have no choice but to dive in and hope that I'm smarter and faster than all the rest of the sharks in the water. Suddenly, an epiphany. The best way to survive this journey was to present myself as the meanest, craziest badass on a street filled with drugged up, crazy, violent moffers. So, I reached into one of my tool bags and pulled out my claw hammer. I began walking down the street, wildly swinging my claw hammer while yelling gibberish, cursing. I delivered an amazing Oscar caliber to ATTE's performance, ranting, raving, moaning and crying, all while making as much claw hammer contact as possible, in a kind, loving, Buddha-like, compassionate sort of way, with mailboxes, streetlight poles, light poles, light poles, light poles, light pole. Almost immediately, I began noticing people crossing the street in front of me to get out of my way. I had turned the tables to where it was I who was to be feared. I made a mental note that for survival purposes, to just be crazier and edgier than the next guy and people would get out of my way. So, for a few brief, shining moments, when I absolutely needed to be, I was indeed the most dangerous, insane, baddest motherfucker in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. This has always been my plan if I'm in a scary place. Act like that guy in Berkeley cussing at random people in the street. I have prevented at least 5 bar fights by saying same team to the 2 guys about to fight. I hate that macho bulls and it is usually over some stupid drunken thing. So if they are close to fighting I'd look at them and say, whoa guys, same team. We are all here to get drunk and chase women. Most of the time they could agree on that and it would ease the tension. Fights are just stupid. No one wins. What about the people on team getting drunk and fighting? Was walking late at night, probably around 3 AM from my friend's place to mine about 4 miles away. Anyways, this drug addict in a beat up Civic drives up and jumps out of the car wielding a knife and screams at me to give him my money. Anyways, we were a good distance from his car and it was still running, so I ducked his knife when he got frustrated that I wasn't responding and ran and jumped in his car. I promptly locked the doors and drove it to the police station. The car was in this guy's name and so he got arrested in a couple hours when he was dumb enough to go home. When I was a teenager I would hang around this guy that sold a lot of drugs. We played PS2 and N64 a lot. I wasn't really into the whole drug scene so I stayed sober. Well, one day I was at his place and he had like 10 other people there. I don't know exactly how many, but it was a lot. So I am chilling on his couch, playing Mario Kart. His couch was in his bedroom, which was at the back of the apartment. He has a balcony overlooking the backyard of the apartment complex. I hear a loud bang followed by a bunch of yelling and stomping. XXPD. XXPD. Get down. Don't freaking move. Holy freaking crap. I immediately get up, quietly as possible open the balcony sliding door, step out, close it back and look around. We're on the 3rd floor. I don't know crap about sticking a landing or if I'll survive this fall or if my legs will snap. Then I see it. One of the neighbors has a pool that's filled with water. If I take a running start, use his rickety but patio furniture to get air, I could totally make this jump. My nerves are shot, adrenaline is pumping and any second that door is gonna bust open with cops. So I do it. I take a running start, stoop off the little plastic chair, launch off and I am heading right for it. Did I forget to mention this was in the Midwest in the middle of January? The pool had a nice thick layer of ice. I crashed through that, cut my arm all to heck and started freaking out. I thought I was in shock. I should have been in shock. I broke the rest of the ice on the way to the side, climbed out and ran up the hill to the interstate and walked the 5 miles to my house. I got pneumonia and almost died. TL. DR. Jumped off a balcony to escape the cops. I misread the title. This is not smart. This is dumb. This is the opposite of smart. My bad. This is the day you will always remember as the day that you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow. I was 17. Second time I had ever been drunk. And oh how drunk I was. I was in the aisle of everything and everybody state when 3 guys come up to me and 1 guy hits me straight in the face. I'm too drunk to feel pain. Don't realize what is going on. He starts asking for my wallet. I say I don't have it on me. He hits me again. Still no freaking idea what is going on. He asks for it again. And I reply with, "Dude, I love you. You are awesome." He says you're alright and they walk off. It dawned on me that they tried to rob me when I sobered up. I will jerk you off. Let me jerk you off right here. My friends and I lived in a sketchy neighborhood during our university years, and we were a real mixed bag of characters that didn't really blend with the general population of that area. My friend was, and still is, a tall, curly-haired embodiment of posh, a proper private school boy. He was stopped by a group of 3 teenage lads threatening him if he didn't hand over his wallet and phone. He freezes, then grabs his jacket lapel and speaks into a radio saying something along the lines of, "This is Officer Thompson. I've been approached by 3 youths and need assistance." They scarpered pretty quick. That situation could have been a lot worse if they'd been paying attention and realized he was just talking into his coat. I called 911 when I saw someone driving drunk on the interstate. I got a call from the cop who pulled him over. It was his 50 WI. This was in WI. Amsterdam. I had a meeting in the Jordan, an old part of town with really narrow streets. It was a business meeting and I was all suited up. I was nearly at the address when I saw a guy sprinting around the corner, coming towards me, holding a plastic bag. There was still 100 meters left. I was in the middle of the street. The guy was racing towards me. Then the next guy rounds the corner shouting, "He's a thief. Get him." I pretended to avoid the first guy, giving him way, but when he passed me, I lift my foot and let him trip. He stumbles and falls. The bag opened up and out came all these boxes filled with weed. Meanwhile the next guy arrived and started smacking the thief around. I don't know what the hell came into me, but I grabbed his arm and I told him, "Listen man, you got your weed. Let the guy go and I won't involve the police." He backed off and went back to his shop. The thief was still lying on the ground and I told him to go. He never said a word. Bonus 1. The client I was supposed to meet came from the opposite direction and saw everything. I got the assignment within 5 minutes, even before my presentation. Bonus 2. After the client meeting I went straight to the coffee shop that was robbed. The guy gave me 10 grams of my weed of choice, telling me if you wouldn't have been there, I probably killed that guy. Bizarro. I wear a suit maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I secretly call it my power suit. I never dare to pull crap like this, only when I wear that suit. You being in a suit makes this story so much more badass. I'm imagining Daniel Craig witnessing some petty theft, stepping in to set these fools straight, then walking back to his meeting while buttoning his suit jacket. The name is Bong, James Bong. My brother was once at a party that got busted by the police. He literally did the "hey what's that over there" thing to distract the cops and then jumped out a 2nd-story window. Wait, what was the title of this thread again? In college, my roommate and I made a few potato guns. Potato guns are PVC style cannons which use hairspray and a lighter from a grill to shoot potato pieces at an impressive speed. Mine was small, maybe 12 inches long, and could fit in one hand. Anyway, after a few days of having fun, we notice our roommate has a small hydrolysis machine for a class project. A hydrolysis separates oxygen and hydrogen out of water, creating a very explosive gas. This is what hydrogen cars will run on. I get a clever idea of putting this into my handheld potato gun, rather than the typical hairspray. Since the machine has to be plugged in, we do load it up inside, and fire it in the hallway. It is a massive success, and splatters a potato on the wall 50 yards away. Naturally the huge bang alerts a few Ras. This is where I had a great idea. I kept my bike in my room, because it was on the nicer side, and I ran over to it and deflated the tire, while ditching my potato gun under my bed. The Ra comes running into the room demanding to know what the noise was from. I point to my, now flat, bike tire, and say that it popped. I was driving on the freeway when traffic slowed down to a crawl. I look in my rear view mirror and saw a car barreling down the road behind me, not slowing down at all. I just had time to quickly switch one lane over. The car eventually slammed on their brakes, did a 180, and their rear end slammed into the rear of the car that was in front of me. If I hadn't have moved, my car likely would have been totaled and who knows what injuries I would have sustained. It wasn't really smart, just hilarious. I was walking along the bike path by my house a couple months ago in broad daylight and these kids stopped me and asked for a cigarette. I said I had no more because they looked like 16. One said, "I bet you do. And you can empty your pockets too. We'll take your cell phone." I just looked at them and said, "Excuse me, kid." The other one reaches in his pocket and I'm thinking, oh frick. This kid is about to pull out a switchblade. Instead he pulls out a small Swiss Army knife. I couldn't help myself and started laughing hysterically. Seriously, even if he managed to stab me with that thing, all it was going to do was pee me off unless he got very lucky with where he got me. They started to get angry that I wasn't scared and the one says, "I said give me your freaking phone." I very calmly said, still trying to regain my composure, "Listen kids, this is not a day where I'm prepared to deal with this bulls. I'm tired. If you take my phone, I'm not calling the cops." The first thing I do is go home and call every one of my friends, who are a lot scarier than I am. Then they call all their scarier friends, and within an hour they're all up here looking for you. They will find you, and if they come all the way up here, they are not going to be as understanding as I am and just take the phone back. They'll beat your asses into the dirt. I'm going to keep walking now, with my phone. You're going to go home. And if you have any common sense, you'll never try this again. Because anyone else you try this on in this area will beat the crap out of you. The look on their faces as I turned and walked away was priceless. They looked so dejected. You could tell they were devastated that baby's first jump was a flop. I still walk that bike path, but I haven't seen them since. I also broke a homeless guy's nose once when he grabbed me to presumably rape me walking through a park at night once. So there's that. You sound like a female Liam Neeson. Goddamn it, I wish I was that cool. More like preventing a potentially dangerous situation was hitchhiking and thinking of a way to make the situation safer while getting a ride. So, whenever a car pulled over, I'd take a picture of the person's license plate with my phone and send it to my dad with the message, "If you don't hear from me in X amount of time, report the license plate along with a description of the driver." I'd tell the driver this as well. Don't know if it saved my butt or not, but so far I've never had a bad ride. This is more a friend of mine, but I am involved. It was late at night, around 1 AM, and I get a call from this friend, he is now known as Bob, who says that he heard a woman screaming when out walking. He called me and said he was scared, and I walked the 3 km to support him. 10 minutes after I got there, I heard it as well. I have never had chills like that before or after. We, two 14-year-old guys, were scared shitless. We went to investigate at some bridge with a river running under it. We found nothing, but reported it into the police anyway. They seemingly shrugged it off, and we went home. The next day, a woman is reported missing, and when found later she was apparently half beaten to death. TLDR. Heard woman screaming, reported it in, got shrugged off. Woman found next day almost dead. You introduced the guy as Bob but didn't refer to him as Bob for the rest of the story. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.